Last time on the Paris Saint-Germain Clown Saga, PSG's big three of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe bowed out to Bayern in the last 16. This extended an everlasting streak of Champions League failures throughout the last decade. And let's briefly go over that stretch. In 2012-13, PSG spent 151 million and were eliminated in the quarterfinals. 2013-14 saw the club spend 135.9 million, and they fell in the quarters after blowing a 3-1 aggregate lead. In 2014-15, PSG paid 50 million for David Luiz and were dragged by Barcelona in the quarters. 2015-16, Paris Saint-Germain was back to spending over 100 million, but once more couldn't get past the dreaded quarterfinal. The Parisians spent 134.5 million in 2016-17, and they did even worse. After initially being up 4-0 in the first leg, PSG blew that lead entirely, losing 6-1 to Barcelona in the second leg of the last 16. PSG spent even more money in 2017-18, with most of that going towards the 222 million Neymar transfer. And again, the Parisians couldn't even get past the last 16. 262 million was spent the following season, with 180 million of that being for the signing of Kylian Mbappe. Despite having two incredible talents, however, PSG blew another first leg lead in the last 16. In 2019-20, PSG only spent a tiny bit. 95 euros. They reached the final that year though, thanks to a little luck of the draw, but fell to Bayern in the final. Probably due to COVID, only 62 million was spent in 2020-21. Despite this though, PSG had another strong run, but then they were easily taken care of by Man City. 2021-22 saw the biggest moves in PSG history. And that's saying a lot with Mbappe and Neymar. Achraf Hakimi, Sergio Ramos, Gianluigi Donnarumma, and Lionel Messi. And the team bottled a 2-0 aggregate lead in 20 minutes. Now, if you want a more detailed version of this summary, here's a video I made that's 40 minutes long. It's my magnum opus. If you want to watch it, it'll be in the annotations above. Then, a couple months later, Messi missed training without the club's permission and made this YouTuber apology video. This was then followed by fans calling for the resignation of board members and the departure of Messi. They even went to Neymar's house and demanded he leave as well. And eventually, PSG fans got their wishes. Messi joined Inter Miami on a free where he'd play in one tin pot tournament and then get injured, and Neymar moved to Saudi Arabia for 90 million, and he already probably wants to leave. Then there was the whole thing with Mbappe. I mean, this f***ing club, man. Kylian still had 1 year left on his contract, but that didn't stop tabloids from trying to cook up Mbappe to Real rumors. In response to those rumors, however, Mbappe said they were fake and that he was happy at PSG. However, owner Nasser Al-Khelaifi, as he always does, gets ahead of himself and says that, quote, if Mbappe wants to stay, he needs to sign a contract. Which sure, makes sense, you don't want to lose Mbappe on a free, but at the same time, the club is literally owned by the Qatari state. Like, I feel like you'll recover pretty easily. But that didn't matter, as Mbappe was excluded from PSG's summer tour with rumors that he would never play again unless he signed a new contract. However, the club reintegrated Mbappe not too soon after into the squad after some, quote, constructive and positive discussions. Translation, we realize if we don't play our star player this season, we're f***ed. Now with all the drama out of the way, let's briefly talk about PSG's moves in the offseason. To start, after an uninspiring campaign where manager Christophe Galtier lost the dressing room, he was sacked. The club then replaced him with Luis Enrique. The ironic thing about this appointment was that Enrique was behind the infamous Barca comeback against PSG back in 2017. But there were also questions about whether or not Luis Enrique was the right man for the job. PSG's big issue was having an ineffective attack, and during Enrique's time with the Spanish national team, he could never create clear opportunities despite averaging over 1,000 passes in the World Cup. In terms of transfers, PSG were moving quite mad. We'll start with the notable exports first. Unhinged human bulldozer Leandro Paredes was sold for 2.5 million to Roma. After an abysmal time in Paris, Gini Wijnaldum moved to Saudi Arabia for 8 million. My favorite player to slander, Julian Draxler, finally left PSG and went to Qatar for 9 million. After being bought for 50 million, Mauro Icardi was sold to Galatasaray for 10 million. Marco Verratti also went to Qatar for 45 million. The midfielder was exceptional throughout his time at PSG. In fact, because PSG didn't really have any other good midfielders, Verratti had to pretty much carry that third all by himself. So with that all said, this was easily the biggest loss for PSG going forward. And lastly, Sergio Ramos left as well. Then came the transfers in. And there were a lot. Gonzalo Ramos scored 19 times for Benfica, which prompted PSG to loan him in with an option to buy. The club saw him as a solid backup to Mbappe, and perhaps if things went well, he could become the eventual starter once the Frenchman left. Longtime PSG target defender Milan Skriniar was added on a free. And when I mean a long time, I mean the last 3 years. PSG has needed a defender of this caliber, and he finally made the move. After a decent season with Real Madrid, Marco Asensio moved to PSG for free as well. Out of every signing that was made, this was easily the most obvious biggest Luis Enrique signing. Lee Kang-in impressed in the previous season with Mallorca, and with PSG needing more catalysts in attack, they brought the Korean in for 22 million. Hugo Ekitike did jack shit last season on loan with PSG, but the club had an obligation to buy the forward for 28 million. PSG bolstered up their defense some more with the signings of French centre-back Lucas Hernandez for 45 million and defensive midfielder Manuel Ugarte for 60 million. The club also added a variety of attacking quality. Ousmane Dembele was brought in for 50 million after a relatively decent bounce back in the last season with Barcelona. Bradley Barcola was the next big thing at Lyon, so PSG signed the forward for 60 million. And finally, PSG whipped out a whole ass 90 million to bring in Randal Kolo Muani. Kolo Muani was exceptional for Frankfurt, scoring 15 goals and assisting 11, and his World Cup 2022 performances helped with his valuation as well. So in total, PSG spends 345.5 million to pretty much overhaul the entire squad. But despite spending that much, this didn't feel like a charge for the Champions League. Instead, it felt more like the most expensive rebuild, with a lot of the new signings being pretty young. They don't count. PSG had a pretty rocky start to the season. The team was trying to get used to Enrique's possession-based playstyle, while Enrique himself was trying to figure out how to score goals. But that said, the fans were actually happy with the team for once because of one thing. I know this is going to be very surprising, but they haven't experienced this in years. The players actually care about the team. A good example would be after a 3-1 win versus Lens, Academy product Warren Zaire-Emery was singing with the fans. But we're not here to talk about the league. In fact, this year, PSG could win Liga no matter how dog shit they were. In the Champions League, Paris Saint-Germain was drawn into a group of death consisting of them, Newcastle, Milan, and Dortmund. They fared well in their first game, beating Dortmund 2-0 in Paris. But then in their next game in Newcastle, they were pummeled 4-1 with goddamn Sean Longstaff even scoring against them. Nonetheless, PSG bounced back and beat Milan 3-0, but then they lost to Milan in the return fixture. But somehow with these results, it was still really close in the group with PSG in second. Not for long though, as against Newcastle at home, Gianluigi Donnarumma makes a mistake and PSG go down 1-0 after just 24 minutes. Meaning now, the Parisians were third with the risk of not even advancing to the knockouts. Again, no one expected them to win this year, but even this was dreadful. But have no fear, because ref ball is here. A handball is called in the box, despite the fact it literally hits the guy's body first, and Mbappe saves PSG in the 8th minute of stoppage time. Paris Saint-Germain returned to second with that result, but they were still in danger, because if PSG couldn't grab all 3 points, Newcastle could overtake them with a win. And in just 33 minutes, Newcastle took the lead against Milan. Things then got even worse for the Parisians when they conceded against Dortmund in the 51st minute. Wait, can you guys hear that? Fortunately, Zaire-Emery responded for PSG just 5 minutes later to dig them just slightly out of the hole. Then 3 minutes after, in the other game, Milan equalized and PSG returned to second in the table. Milan then found a winner late on, which confirmed PSG's appearance in the knockouts despite a 1-1 draw with Dortmund. Now that we're pretty much at the halfway point of the season, let's mention a couple notable performances. Mbappe, as you'd expect, was putting up some really solid performances, but alongside him, there was Warren Zaire-Emery, who collected 3 assists and a goal in the groups. He was 17 at the time, by the way. Also, after disappointing in his first few campaigns, Gianluigi Donnarumma has started to look a lot more solid. After signing with PSG in the summer, things just haven't really gone the way of Milan Skriniar, and an injury set him back even farther. And remember Randal Kolo Muani? Well, he's been so bad that social media now calls him Rwanda Congo Mali. Into the January transfer window, things weren't as eventful for PSG, but they still managed to spend over 100 million. Continuing on with one of the most expensive youth revolutions, the club brought in both 20-year-old center-back Lucas Beraldo and 18-year-old defensive midfielder Gabriel Moscardo from the Brazilian leagues for a total of 40 million. PSG then triggered the option to buy Gonçalo Ramos after just 5 months and paid 65 million plus another 20 million in add-ons. Despite PSG only finishing as runners-up, they struck even more luck and drew with Real Sociedad. Quite literally, the easiest possible team they could have gotten out of all of the group winners. Paris Saint-Germain struggled to break down the Sociedad defense in the first half, but the Parisians' quality proved too much in the second half. They won 2-0, and the Parisians could breathe a little easier for the return fixture.
You've got mail.
Well, we all saw this coming at some point. Yes, that's right. Your eyes are not deceiving you. It may actually finally be over. Maybe. After 3 years of this shit, Kylian Mbappe is actually leaving Paris Saint-Germain at the end of the season. So now with this confirmation, everything changed for PSG. Because even though PSG started this campaign not too hopeful for the Champions League, now they had to go all in with the Champions League because this was the last chance for a while with their generational star departing soon. And so it began as they took care of Sociedad in the second leg, and then Luis Enrique started giving Mbappe limited minutes in the league to keep him healthy for the bigger prize. For the quarters, PSG was drawn with Barcelona, but not only that, they were drawn onto this side of the bracket. You want to know who was on the other side of the bracket? Man City, Bayern, and Real Madrid. I am once more asking the question, what fucking black magic has Nasser performed to make this happen again? But going back to the Barcelona matchup, this felt like a demon Paris Saint-Germain needed to exercise. Sure, they did beat Barca last time the two faced, but the Blaugrana had practically tortured the Parisians throughout the entirety of the mid-2010s.
Goes outside the boot towards him, could come for Rafinha!
Remember what I said about Donnarumma? Yeah, never mind. The Parisians wouldn't back down that easily though, as in the 47th minute, former Barca player Ousmane Dembele strikes a vicious shot into the roof of the net. Not even 3 minutes later, Vitinha turns it around for Paris. However, PSG could do nothing about the absolute dime Pedri shipped to Rafinha, and the game is level once more. Then the 76th minute, PSG once again concede, and this time it's the winner for Barcelona. Not what the Parisians would have wanted to happen, but by no means was this tie over. But that said, PSG's talisman, their superstar, Reliable himself, Kylian Mbappe, was damn near invisible. Barcelona had pulled off a masterclass in containing Mbappe, and in doing so, they found out that literally no one else could do anything on that team. But was Mbappe really gonna let it end this way, being cut by his future club's rivals? Into the second half, it was looking that way, as PSG concede again. Oh no. It's the music again. But not so fast, Super Mario 64 merry-go-round.mp3, because just 20 minutes played, PSG are gifted something truly invaluable: Barcelona's stupidity.
Explain yourself.
Now with one less man to deal with, more importantly Barca's best defender, PSG manifested all their built-up hate since 2017 and began to feast. 39 minutes played, Ousmane Dembele wallops another ball into the roof of the net. Early into the second half now, Vitinha, with all the room in the world, fizzes one into the bottom corner. 4-all on aggregate now. 58th minute, Dembele is taken down in the box, Mbappe converts the penalty, advantage PSG now. Then with a few minutes remaining, Mbappe takes the dagger, jabs it into the heart of Barcelona, and twists it, as PSG come back from 3-2 to win 6-4 on aggregate away from home. Now just that closer to the final, PSG would be up against Borussia Dortmund, yet another very winnable tie. But you mustn't forget this is PSG, and after their backline falls asleep, they concede in just 35 minutes. And they about nearly concede again right before the end of the half. Oh, and what about that attack, you may ask? Well, each of them were in the pockets of the Dortmund defenders. In fact, in the first half, Paris Saint-Germain didn't register a single shot on target. However, to begin the second half, things look better as Mbappe is lucky to hit the post. The ball rebounds back to PSG though, and then Hakimi also hits the post. Nevertheless, 55 minutes played, PSG are starting to really feel it again. A ball is delivered to a wide open Fabian Ruiz. 80th minute now, PSG finally managed to get in behind Dortmund's backline. Mbappe squares it to Dembele. Things just never change, do they? Have no fear, PSG faithful. With this many chances, the goal is surely to come soon. Fabian Ruiz with another free header. After doing their best Lautaro Martinez impression, PSG lose 1-0 in Dortmund, but I'm still trying to figure out. Have you guys seen him? Where'd Mbappe go? Yes, once more. When his team needed him the most, Kylian Mbappe vanished like Drake when someone turns 18. Not all hope was lost, however. It was only 1-0, and the second leg would be in Paris. Surely, with so many clear-cut chances in the first half, the Parisians would not let disaster strike twice. Thrice. Going into the second leg, Paris Saint-Germain made a couple changes. Firstly, to replace Lucas Hernandez, Luis Enrique picked not Milan Skriniar, but Lucas Beraldo. That's right, Skriniar had fallen so far out of favor that an inexperienced player who joined a few months ago from the Brazilian league is starting. I'm sure that'll go swimmingly. Then up top, Enrique opted for Gonzalo Ramos, while Mbappe would be played on the wing. And it looked to be the right idea, as in just 2 minutes, Ramos tests the keeper early on. 10 minutes later, Ramos has an even better chance, but he fluffs his lines. Nevertheless, PSG continue hounding Mbappe, but to no avail. But then, into the second half, Mbappe whips a ball in, Ramos gets a piece, and it falls nicely to Zaire Emery, who Oh no. Surely not. You're damn right it's happening again. Just 3 minutes after missing a golden opportunity, PSG concede off a corner after leaving Mats Hummels completely wide open. And why don't you look at who the culprit was? Now chasing the game, we also started to realize why Gonzalo Ramos hadn't made a Champions League start since the 4-1 loss to Newcastle. This club saw 4 months of him and decided to pay 80 million, by the way. And it appeared even the football gods were playing into this hilariously cruel joke as PSG hit the woodwork another 2 times. But stress not, because in times of dire need and desperation, Kylian Mbappe is here to save the day. Kylian Mbappe is here to say...
She's in again. It's
Mbappe! And so, the clown saga continues as Paris Saint-Germain lose 2-0 on aggregate and are eliminated from the Champions League. And once again, Kylian Mbappe fails to perform when the team needed him most. I mean, if you never mentioned whose last dance it actually was, I would have thought it was Vitinha's last dance, because all Mbappe did was frolic in the wind. Luis Enrique really saved this guy's performances for moments like this, huh? It really is the history of the PSG. Now with Mbappe's dreams of winning the Champions League at PSG over, it is certain that PSG are not going to win the Champions League for a while. They had a generational star and failed to build around him since 2017, and if you want to concede at least 2 of those years, that is still 2019. 5 years. And all these years, the club has spent insane amounts of money and couldn't build a competent midfield until his last season. I mean, to tell you how bad PSG's management has been, they've been in rebuild mode throughout the last 2 years while Mbappe was at the peak of his powers. Generational up. No matter how many shiny new players this club buys in the future, they will forever be a laughingstock to Europe. Because sure, the club has plenty of promising young talents, especially the likes of Vitinha and Zaire Emery. Oh, and they also have plenty of money to buy even more. But without Mbappe, it's just not gonna be the same. I mean, the guy scored 43 goals in all competitions. There's not one available forward that can replicate such insane numbers. For me, it might take years until this team comes even close to being contenders again. And it might take even longer for them to even come close to winning it all again. But what do you guys think? Will PSG still be a threat in Europe next year? I mean, all things considered, it is still a rebuild and they did manage to make it to the semis. Albeit a little bit of luck here or there. Actually, a lot of luck. They probably shouldn't have even made it out of the groups. But of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons, of course, including Janos Balas, Brazilian Fury, Miliway009, Adazir Makalangkom, Alex Rod, Anaya20, Araisan, Billy Jack, Gwen Dung, Hysteria, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Slider Kit, Sniffers, Takuoka Fan, Tana Permelia, Celine Khan, The Cypriot 35, Tomicus, Victor, Chris Visconsi, Dominic Griffin, Joe Paricio, Kensha Agacha, Kyler Krebs, Lucian Von Kreutz, Mohammed Al-Tanib, Nish, Patrick Barley, Rashford God 5, Raspberry Ale, Rowan Cookie, Sylvia Citrus, subscribe to Tende Tem, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there's a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you like, you can follow my Twitch, which I will be doing a Eurovision watch along on Saturday, so tune in for that. But until then, I'll see you guys.